Thanks for joining the Tuesday edition of Journalist Hangout. I'm Ayodele Osugbakun. Today on the program, Senate passes minimum wage bill, approves 30,000 naira for workers. Federal government to prosecute parents of out-of-school children. And later on the show, residents scamper for safety as Boko Haram attacks MICHIKA town in Adamawa State. I'll be hanging out with Asuko James and Wahid Bakari. So if you are ready, let the hangout start now. After a long negotiation process, implementation of the new minimum wage for Nigerian workers is now at the penultimate stage. At the plenary on Tuesday, the Senate adopted the report of its ad hoc committee on the national minimum wage and passed the bill. The bill, which was presented by Senator Francis Ali McKenna, sets the new minimum wage at 30,000 naira, as we know. But for the workers, it is not yet uhuru until the bill is signed into law by President Muhammadu Buhari. Asuko, do you see anything stopping Mr. President from signing the new minimum wage? 30,000 naira has been adopted by the House of Rep, 30,000 naira adopted by the Senate. That means the National Assembly is on the same page with, the executive. But what do you think will stop Mr. President from signing this? During the last Council of State meeting, they were talking about some saying 26,000.
27. Exactly.
So what could make Mr. President delay signing this bill into law?
I am not sure Mr. President will not sign this into law, because if you look at when the issue about the minimum wage, came up, the federal government actually said they are ready to pay this 30,000. It was the state governors who were always saying that they don't have the capacity to, pay this.
You are saying who are always saying they don't have the capacity.
They were always saying, that was our argument. That was our argument back then.
Okay.
That if they can cut down on their, frivolities and expenses and all that, they should be able to pay this 30,000. But Mr. President has always said that that is the federal government, can pay this 30,000 naira. And I want to believe he's going to sign this assent to this bill, because it's taking a lot of time. And I know very many people, just like you are saying, many pessimists will be waiting to see if Mr. President will actually, sign this bill. Because, back then, last year before the election, many people are saying the president is actually throwing this carrot. That's, okay, don't worry, we are going to, put this, you are going to sign this and not sign that. But this is to show if Mr. President is actually serious in signing this 30,000. And I want to believe he will do that. Because if you look at, in the past couple of years, it has been this same Mr. President who has been making sure and advocating that the workers are being given, their wages. And he has been giving bailouts. He has not stopped giving bailouts. Even when the bailout funds, you are always coming for him to, to either use that bailout fund for other matters or other things. He was always saying, give it to the state governors for them to pay salaries. So I want to believe he's going to do that. He won't want to when it comes to the cost of workers. So I want to believe he's going to do this. So, but I'm even more particular about what the committee actually said, which is the review of the revenue sharing formula. If Mr. President can also look at that, and maybe
that's a different ball game
entirely. Perhaps that can be another issue that might want to, stop the president from signing. But right now, I want to appeal to Mr. President. It is high time they also look at reducing the amount of work the federal government is doing and move it to the state government. That is where the issue about restructuring is always coming about, So if they can reduce what the federal government is doing, like the issues, the issues of education, the issues of road maintenance and all that, let them move them straight to the state government.
Wahid, after the controversy about the 30,000 naira minimum wage, I have some friends in government, some state governors, and I've had to speak with them one-on-one and carry out my own independent investigations. And I discovered that Lo and behold, yes, it is desirable for our workers to have 30,000 naira, to get 30,000 naira. For the federal government, they have the capacity to sign that bill into law to recommend that 30,000 naira. But I discovered that we might be having a kind of crisis in our hand if the minimum wage is signed as a 30,000 naira, and the reality on ground as at Nigeria economy today, some state governments will not be able to pay 30,000 naira. Stark reality. Forget this allowance you're talking about. We're quick to talk about the security allowance. We're quick to talk about the number of cars in their convoy and the aircraft, security votes and the aircraft they fly and everything. But realistically, I don't want to mention those states so that it's not going to be betrayal of trust. I've had to see their books and look at it and reconcile it with what is on ground. Check the IGR, check what they are owing, their debt profile, and the irreversible standing orders. And some, when they are collecting that monthly allocation, you know, they are paying the debts they have been owing, and compulsory, they've staggered debts 15 years, 20 years. Wahid, what are we joking with here?
I think the reality is that, like you rightly pointed out, it will be difficult, if not impossible, for some states to pay. Because as we speak now, even the 18,000 minimum wage is not being paid by some states. It's on record that not all the states are paying. But the question you may want to ask is, why is it difficult for them to pay? Is it because they don't have enough money? Is it because they engage in a lot of frivolities, you know, doing things that they are not supposed to do, you know, going on spending spree, you know? But for me, I think it is high time the state government start looking at, you know, outside the box. They should look for a way to generate money without necessarily depending on the federal government to give them allocation. A situation whereby they continue to go to Abuja on monthly basis, you know, to get, it will be difficult for them. And when we are saying that they should think outside the box, they don't have to bring, because when you tell them to look for ways of generating revenue, what already comes to the mind of most of them is that they want to increase taxes. Now, how do you give additional tax burden to those people who are already down, those people whose purchasing power has been seriously dwindled? You can't give them additional tax, but there are various ways you can also generate money outside what you are getting from Abuja. I was watching TV this morning, and it was so amazing what Singapore and Indonesia are doing with palm oil. And I was wondering, why can't we replicate the same here? Funny enough, the same Malaysia came here to learn how to produce it, and they are doing amazing things. While we are producing, I think they said 4 million metric tons or something like that. They were thinking in the region of 41 million metric tons in a year, and that was giving them massive revenue. And we have arable lands all over the country wasting away. They are not making use of it. So if they can think outside the box and think of additional way of generating revenue, I think they should be able to pay. Another thing is that it is high time government, you know, start this populist idea of, you know, giving all manner of employment to people. Like I've always argued, and I still want to maintain that, you know, the government should be concerned with the provision of the enabling environment. Nigeria is a very fertile land. It's the kind of land that, you know, investors can invest. But when you look at the enabling environment, they are being discouraged to do that. Look at the amount of money that the telecommunication companies are making in Nigeria. And I want to assure you that if more telecoms companies should come into Nigeria, they will still make their money. That shows you how fertile this country is. So you prepare the enabling environment, it will encourage investors to come into Nigeria and do wonders with so many things in this country.
Asuko, looking at our reality with 30,000 naira and Nigeria of today, as much as we are saying that some states cannot actually pay, at the same time, what can 30,000 naira do if you are living in Lagos, Nigeria?
Ayo, 30,000 naira will not take you home. Let me put it that way. Because 30,000 naira is small. You know, the NLC then started with 75,000. Even 75,000 in the realities of today,
yes,
is still not, enough.
You pay your house rent.
You are going to pay house rent. You are going to enter the transport. You are going to also look good.
School fees.
And if you are a family, yes, now you still pay school fees from it. You also eat.
And if you have more than 2 kids,
that God help you that you don't have more than 2 kids. Because if you have more than 2 kids, that is another problem. So 30,000 naira is a far cry from what is on ground today. The economic reality. Yes, the government, yesterday they were saying that the inflation rate has dropped and things like that.
11 points.
And I was even trying to see how much the prices of things are.
To reflect directly.
Yes. Somebody was telling me even today that the bag of rice is now 13,000.
From when?
No, today.
As in,
from 18,000.
From 18.
Yes, it's now
13,000.
So, but I don't want
8,000 at the point.
Yes, at a point in time. That is before this administration. But I don't want to say, or I don't want to use that indices, the inflation dropping, to say that 30,000 naira will be enough. It can never be enough. But we want to believe, and I want to believe that with this 30,000 that they have started with, we should be looking at another maybe 4 years or 5 years, or in the next couple of years, they have to increase this minimum wage. Don't forget, it's supposed to be every 5 years, And the 5 years, this particular one should have come way back.
2011 or so.
So if it's 2011, it means 2016 plus another 5 years, we should be thinking of an increment in the minimum wage in the next 2 or 3 years. So the federal government should brace up for another NLC strike or another NLC demand. Yes, because that is the final solution. For another NLC demand for increment in the minimum wage. Because if you look at Ayo, 30,000 naira cannot buy, the available things that a family of four. Yes, a family of 4 will require. Even a family of 3, because you have to pay your house rent. You have to, go to, if you have a job, you have to move to that job. You can't say that you're staying in Ikeja, and then if your office is in Ikeja, you want to also trek to Ikeja, to your office. And that one is even cutting you. When they say cut your coat according to your money, you shredded your own coat. That is what it means. So 30,000 is not enough. But this is a first step. I want to say it is a first step in achieving what in future might come.
Wahid, how come we have uniform minimum wage in a federal system of government? I thought if the government of Ekiti State, I should be able to say, this is my resources, this is what I have, this is what I have, and this is the standard of living in the Ekiti State. It should be different from Lagos State. So how come you have a regulated minimum wage?
Well, you also have to know the fact that, when you are talking about negotiation, you have to negotiate. It's always between the labor and
I think I have my first caller. Mohammed is calling us from Kano. Thank you for joining us, Mohammed.
Hello, how are you?
Very well, Mohammed. Thank you for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, how is the program?
Fine.
Please, I want to react to the program of yesterday.
Oh, Mohammed, I doubt if you can do that. You want to take us back yesterday.
Please, I wanted you to caution the guy that publicly insulted the president yesterday by saying that he is a bad politician or is not a politician. We were not happy about that.
Okay, Mohammed, noted, Mohammed.
Yes, we want you to caution those type of people because this program we are regular watcher of.
Thank you, Mohammed. Correction noted. I think it was yesterday's edition. And we were talking about the rerun election.
Okay.
Like I was saying, the negotiation is always between Labour and the federal government. The issue of state government does not even come into play. That is the unfortunate aspect of it. But one would have expected that, you allow, if you are practicing true federalism, you allow every state to grow at its own pace. Whereby a situation whereby you can't compare. Federalism. Yes, in the real sense of what federalism is all about. That's how it should be, because you cannot compare what Lagos is generating with what a state like Yobe is generating. When you put together the internally generated revenue of about 30-something states, that's what only
Lagos is doing over 30 billion naira.
And you can see that's why some of the governors are crying that apart from Lagos, they are not even sure of any other state that can do it. I will prefer a situation whereby, each state is allowed, to negotiate what they can pay. Because I foresee a situation whereby if you insist that they should pay 30,000 as minimum wage, they are going to end up, saying they want to sack a lot of workers. And the truth is that we can't continue to spend a larger part of our money on salary. How do you develop in that kind of situation? It becomes very, very difficult.
Because of my investigation, that's one development I noticed, that if you have the population of a whole state and you have civil servants, just barely 5% of the entire state actually eating into the allocation of that state, taking 85% every month. Where are the...
That is for wages.
For wages. So what is left for you to do infrastructure, to do roads, to do health, to do some other things?
So it's a very it becomes difficult. But then again, how do you trust people that when they collected bailout fund, because we have also been saying that, they cannot pay, they don't have the resources, but how do you trust those kind of people? We have had a situation whereby when they got the bailout, and the president made it clear that this should be for salary, because a lot of people couldn't get salary for months. It became worse in homes whereby you have the husband and the wife, working as civil servant. There were a lot of convictions then. But even when the minimum the bailout fund was made available, some of them don't even still use it for the purpose. And the president,
I think I have Benjamin on the line from BENUE State. Thank you for joining us, Benjamin. Yes, Benjamin. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Yeah, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Go ahead, Benjamin.
I appreciate the program.
Okay.
My question is, I want to refer to the anchorman of the program, who said, having taken his personal investigation, discovered that some states cannot be able to pay the minimum wage.
Yes, Benjamin.
If any state in Nigeria cannot pay that minimum wage, because, for instance, if you take this the period of an electioneering campaign, if you see the money all these state governors that were contested spent, where do they get this money? That the minimum wage implemented just 30,000, they cannot pay. So I think, as the Labour initially said, any state, it's quite unfortunate that the election has been done. Otherwise, I think if there are pending elections, some of these states that cannot pay, I think it's better we vote them out. But unfortunately, in Nigeria, everything goes. So that is the system. But I believe so much well that every state governor can pay that 30,000 minimum wage. So there should be no excuse, because they have spent much to ensure that they are back to the office. Exactly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benjamin. I'll be here. We'll be alive to remind you in the next 6-7 months. When we're talking about personal investigation, we know what we're talking about. Sentiments. You can't use sentiment to drive this thing, but take it to the bank. Benjamin, as it were today, I can tell you without fear or favor that some states in Nigeria today cannot afford 30,000 naira minimum wage. Quote me anywhere.
That is your own investigation. Benjamin is telling you in his own state that
okay, I don't know his state.
He believes that in his own state, the governor has the capacity to pay salaries.
Okay,
that's what he's telling you.
Okay.
Wherever he's calling from, he's telling you.
Okay, so the money deployed for election.
Ayo, let me tell you, if you see the monies that we are... Yes, this administration also tried using the AFCC to see that people don't, the vote buying thing,
the vote buying has come to stay.
Does not become fashionable like it did in, I think, in Osun. They tried, because I didn't see where people were, sharing money like they did in Osun. But even at that, monies were spent, and not just ordinary money. Thousands, millions of naira was spent during the election. And so it will be very difficult for you to convince a Benjamin and many other Benjamins in Nigeria that these state governors don't have money.
Now, without retrenchments.
Yes.
Keeping...
that they keep, in fact, they keep these monies for the next 4 years. so that they will be able to come back to become governors.
I feel that.
So it will be very difficult for you to convince a Benjamin that these governors don't have the money to pay the workers, especially the 30,000. If the president has given out bailouts for a state to pay salaries,
and still the person still did not
pay and
used it for another project.
And then when it came to election period, the man is spending money up and down.
We saw some government
very
now
difficult for you to convince them.
making suspicious withdrawal 2-3 days to the election. Running into billions of naira. What were they using the money? What do they want to use the money for? Just to influence voters. That same money they cannot use to pay workers. You know, like I said earlier on, how do you trust somebody that you said you have a problem? You went to somebody and the person said, okay, let me bail you out. But this money must be used for these specific reasons. And at the end of the day, some state did not even pay salary. Some pay half. Some were owing 3 months. They decided to pay 1 month. Whereas the president made this clear that this money that I'm giving out is for you to pay salary. And that's why the president said, I find it difficult to know how people who call themselves governors we sleep with their 2 eyes closed when millions of people are out on the streets looking for what to eat on a daily basis. So you can understand the frustration of Benjamin. Perhaps they are seeing things. Unfortunately, they didn't tell us the states. You know,
I know of one particular organization that what they give, let's say what they give to an average maybe level 8 worker, I'm just saying the private organization in Lagos is different from what they give in Abuja. Acknowledging the fact that Abuja lifestyle, cost of living,
is higher.
Transportation, accommodation and everything is higher. So like that. So why can't we adopt something like that? I discovered that in my sojourn during the election in the north, that in northern part of the country, there are places where you have food as very cheap in terms of food stock, and compared to what we have here. If you go to Katsina, you want to buy a meal, 200-300 will fix you a decent meal.
See, Ayo, we can adopt it, you know, but I'm not sure the realities on ground will not allow us, except there's a roundtable discussion for us to begin to identify which state is willing to pay what. Take, for instance, Lagos is earning more than 30 billion, like we heard, you know. If they come to a round and Lagos tells you that they can't pay their level 8.
And Lagos should be able to say, okay, with what I generate and everything, I'll pay more than that minimum wage.
That is what they are thinking, that they can pay more than. See, do you think the Lagos State governor doesn't want to employ more people? He wants to employ more people. But he will now tell you that if I'm employing more people, I will not be able to pay 30,000. But somebody who is maybe in Yobe, or a governor who is in Yobe, that is staff strength is not even up half of Oshodi, will still tell you that he doesn't have money to pay because he's not earning anything. You know, so it will be very difficult for us to now begin to look. It's left for us to sit down first and identify the state. Lagos did not start earning 30 billion in one day. It took someone's thinking, someone's planning. And it was beyond politics. It was somebody who thought looked into the future and begin to look at, okay, what are those things that we can, do for us to begin to earn money outside the federal allocation? And that is what all states are supposed to do now.
I have a call from Lagos.
Good evening.
Okay, Cyprian, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. You guys are doing a great job, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cyprian.
Yeah, I want to contribute to your discussion, please.
I'll go ahead, Cyprian.
Yeah, so you see, the idea of these governors telling you they don't have money to pay, they are shortchanging the masses generally. I could remember 1999, Lagos was having 600 million as their own budget.
Yes.
But
internally generated revenue.
if you look at the budget they read now, it runs into trillions. How did they go about it? So these people who call themselves governors that cannot pay, the people who are the labor should go after them, because they cannot sleep with their eyes closed if they don't pay their workers. And secondly, the poor people did not even do the thing well. They didn't go about the salary increment in a normal way. They would have allowed each state to go about it. If Lagos can pay 60, or your can pay 50,
According to
they would have
that.
allowed it to go in that form. But allowing them to pay 30,000 as a minimum
rate
wage
for everybody.
is shortchanging the workers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cyprian. Thank you, Wahid.
If
Do you agree with Cyprian?
if Lagos decides to pay 50,000 minimum wage today, Ayo, Lagos will be the overpopulation in Lagos will be more than what you would think. Because everybody will leave their states and they will come and be hustling for job in Lagos.
Okay.
You know,
it will affect the private sector.
exactly. You know, so we need to balance this thing up very well.
That is why I think the government should not bother much about giving people employment. You know, like I keep saying, you know, you don't have to bother yourself with that. You know, I think some of them ended up, you know, creating more problem for themselves. You know, when they want to satisfy the masses, they want to show that they are populist, you know, in their thinking and their way of doing things. You know, by creating all manners of employment. The more people you give employment, the higher your wage bill becomes. It won't reduce. You know, it won't reduce. Government should just concentrate on providing the enabling environment. Investors will come to Nigeria. Nigeria is too fertile for any investor to ignore. They will come and invest here, and by so doing, they will employ a lot of people. I think for me that's the way out.
All right. When we return, federal government to prosecute parents of out-of-school children. Stay with us. It's still Journalist Hangout. We'll be right back after this breather. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Journalist Hangout. We're reaching you live from Television Continental. That Nigeria is ranked #1 globally as the country with the highest number of out-of-school children at 13.2 million. Can best be described as a time bomb waiting to explode. More worrisome is the fact that the figure, which represents 20% of the world's out-of-school children, is on the rise. To tame this menace, the federal government is planning to criminalize the acts and prosecute parents who refuse to send their children to school. The Minister of Education, Adamu, said the trend can only be reversed when such law comes into effect. Can the country bank on this, solving the issues? Gentlemen, I'm very circumspect, Wahid, in trying to talk about this because when you're talking about out-of-school children, I know it's everywhere in Nigeria, but when you go to the northern part of the country,
Of course.
it's as if I don't know if it has anything to do with religion. But my last conversation with the governor of Katsina State, that's Right Honorable Aminu Bello Masari, is saying it's un-Islamic. It has nothing to do with Islam, and he was able to spell it out that Amajiri rain children on the kids, not educating them, that is un-Islamic. So you might be in a better position to shed light to this.
I completely agree with the governor. I'm also a Muslim, and I think I should know. You know, Islam places so much emphasis on acquisition of knowledge. You know, as at the time of the Holy Prophet, you know, I think the farthest country to Saudi Arabia is China, and it is on record that the Prophet did say that, you know, if it will take you to go to a place that is as far as China to go and acquire knowledge, you go there. You know, and to the best of my knowledge, China, up to today, is not an Islamic country. So if he's saying they should go to a place that is as far as China, he's not saying they should go and acquire Islamic knowledge because it's not even an Islamic country in the first place. You know, and there are so many hadiths, you know, the saying of the Prophet to support that, you know, acquisition of knowledge is very, very important in Islam. There's also another one which says that, you know, learning must be from cradle to your grave. He didn't say Islamic knowledge. He said knowledge, acquisition of knowledge must start from your cradle until you die. So there is no limit to it. You are expected to do it. So those who are hiding under cultural or religious belief, I don't know where they are getting it from. You know, it is totally wrong. And as a parent, you know, it is part of your responsibility to ensure that you give your children education. It's part of your, it's only when you have done your responsibility, you can also expect that when they grow up, they can also do certain things for you. It's about give and take. As a parent, what have you given your children that you are not, in your whole age, you are not expecting that they will give you something in return? If you are not giving them anything, you can't expect them to give you something good in return. So Islam places so much emphasis on education, but unfortunately, you discover that the majority of children out of school, they are from that region. Now you begin to wonder, where is this one coming from? Because you can't relate it with religion. Maybe with culture, I don't know, because I'm not from that part of the country, But I know as far as religion is concerned, there is no basis for you, to not to acquire knowledge. And they didn't say Islamic knowledge. He keep on saying knowledge.
As well, even down south here, you go, if you're driving on, it's part of the fact that there's a subsisting law for street trading, against street trading. You go on 3rd Mainland Bridge in the morning, there's some people from a certain part of the country, you see them on 3rd Mainland Bridge, school age. That mean, selling. You go to Island Avenue, they're always there. Go to any major traffic, areas in Lagos, and you begin to see like this is a time bomb, waiting to explode. That if parents could send their children, like the first thing is go and beg, fend so that we can fend for the family.
Ayo is worrisome, honestly, because I know across the world, basic education, I mean basic, not after maybe you are 10 years or there, but most countries in the world put high premium on basic education because they know if you fail in that particular level in a man's lifespan, then you have failed the person completely. Because it is from age 2, let me say use 2, because even now at age 2 they're already going to preschool. They started going to preschool now, private school and all that. So from age 2 to 9, which is the basic, most countries in the world don't joke with them because they know that is where you start. That is your formative years. That is where you begin to learn those things that you see, then you act some of those things, before you now start getting to your teen age. So because from age 2 to 9 in China, from investigation that I gathered, they have 99% attendance in primary school, meaning they just have 1% left. That is 99%. It means they are telling you that in China, it is compulsory. It is a must that once your child is between that age 2 or age 0 to 9, that child must have basic education. I grew up in Lagos. I was born in Lagos. And I attended a primary school that was, I didn't pay a dime.
Free education.
It was free education. So if I had free education in Lagos, why can't all states in Nigeria? I'm not talking about free education based on politics. I'm talking about free education that is free education. And once I get to my class, I want to get complete education. I don't know, you saw the video about success in Delta State, that went viral. That is a child that wants education at all costs.
Yes, at all costs.
At all costs.
If you
feel like beat me.
But don't send me home.
Yes, beat me, but I will still get education. I'm very sure in Nigeria, we have children like that across. But once they get, such children have determination, though, Ayo. But once they get to these classes, do they get that education? Is another problem. So if the federal government is saying that they want to now prosecute parents, have they also done their own investigation to check themselves? If I'm sending my child to a public school, will my child get proper education? Because it's not about you giving suburb money. It's not about you saying that you have allocated so X, Y, Z amount of money to schools. But it is about making sure that once these children go into these classes, they get proper education.
I want to look at the role of poverty in all this, because some parents will tell you that we cannot even afford, we don't even know what the next meal will be, as in we can't even afford a square meal. So it's not possible to send our kids to school.
I think those parents are wrong. There is this saying that there is a school for every child. You know, if you want your child, if you can afford this, you want your child to go to a highbrow school and you have the money, they are available. We have public school, we have those that are neither private nor public in the recent of it. You know, like the unfortunate one that pupils, you know, had to die at Stafford.
Exactly, yes.
You know, we have so many schools like that. You know, but for me, I think I would be in support of this idea of government criminalizing it. I recall that about 2 years ago, you know, I commissioned some people in my team to do a story on street hawking, especially during the school hours, you know, among children that are of school age. You know, we discovered that if you come to Acme Road, you know, you see a lot of them during school hours. There is a place where they normally converge at night, you know, at around 6:30, you see them start gathering there. If you go to First Gate bus stop, you see them in large number. And yes, you see them there in large number, boys and girls. And, you know, and now we got one of them, a girl, and we interact. I was one who actually interacted with her in my office. Somebody brought her, and I spoke with her. It was from that girl that I got to know that most of those hawkers that usually hawk groundnut, the majority of them are from Benue State. She was the one who told me. And her mom, what her mom was doing was that she brings them from Benue, and she places them on 15,000 monthly salary, and that money goes to their parents at home. You know, if you have that kind of situation, I'm very sure if that person is arrested and prosecuted, because I know that there are others like her in this Lagos that bring children from outside Lagos, you know, to come and hawk for them. You know, they have targets. You must meet your target as far as one of the conditions for you to get your full salary. If at the end of the day you cannot give account of what you are giving, you know, they will still deduct it from your salary. But the bottom line is that it's a connivance between that woman and their parents back at home. You know, those kind of parents cannot say because they are poor, they cannot afford to send their children to school. That's why they ask somebody to bring them down to Lagos, purposely to just come and be hawking on the streets of Lagos. So there are so many parents like that. I think government should go after them and make sure they prosecute them. But government should also, like you said, make sure that they play his own part very well. Because if you look at the case of Success, I was shocked. All along I thought maybe she was driven from a private school. I never knew it was from a public school. Because you discover that there are some public schools whereby you have a lot of hidden charges being charged by some of these so-called
education is free.
You know, they will say it is free. They give you the impression that it is free, but they will say us to pay certain fee. It was the inability of that girl to pay that fee. I think it was about 1,800 naira that made them to send her away. And the government is saying they don't know anything about it. You know, you can't give something with right hand and use left hand to collect it. You know, you have to make sure that your people are up and doing. If you are giving free education in the real sense of it, you know, and I don't think it should cost fortune for government to do it. We have enjoyed it in the past. Why can't they enjoy it now?
How can the government tackle this menace? Well, if we are saying 13.2 million, what comes into my memory? I remember talking with Babajide, and he told me that they'll tell us they've killed Boko Haram, they killed 1,000 Boko Haram people, 400, 300. How come you keep having them? They said it's recruitment. How are they recruiting them? They said they give them money.
Of course, now they gave them loan.
They give them loan. Poverty. And I look at the role. If government cannot come to the rescue, if government cannot play the basic role.
Look, you're talking about that because I think it was 2 years ago myself, Babajide was showing me a video when Boko Haram was still hot. we had child soldiers. They were actually recruiting these young boys to become soldiers fighting, this cause, their cause in quotes, And this comes because they don't have that proper education. The government has to take this seriously. And it's not something that they just have to, leave for any state government. Just like as they have done in every other sector. I know they are doing the school feeding program. It's worked wonders in Osun.
School feeding program is increased the enrollment.
Yes, the enrollment. It worked wonders
in
Osun. I know. They can do that, and they are still doing it. I know they said they have they are feeding close to 9.3. They can do it. We don't want them to stop. If that is what is going to draw, this enrollment to make it higher, let them do it.
I think that has worked in the past for some states.
In most states, if they can do it, let them do it. It doesn't cost government anything because even there's a value chain for feeding these children. The person that is selling yam, the poultry person, the farmer, the caterer, everybody is a value chain on its own.
Yes.
So the children will benefit and some other people will also benefit.
Yes.
So the government can, enforce the school feeding program on all states, but leave it for the states to handle so that the federal government can free itself from, doing additional wage bill. Then another thing is making the environment conducive. I know when Mimiko was around, when Mimiko was governor, I saw some of the schools he was building, primary schools he was building. Very attractive.
Yeah.
So if I am home and somebody is moving, and I saw which
even in Osun State.
Yes, in Osun State, okay. Big ones.
Schools built
Good
by
schools. With seesaw and when we are still young, we call it Jangolova. In public school,
you won't even believe it.
So by the time you have things like
just
that,
driving into a show where you see
children,
one by your
because
right.
children love where others are playing, particularly very activities that will excite them. So if you have all these things in school, things that are in private school, you move it to public school. You will see that the enrollment of children will be high. So government can, think of other things and other ways to attract these children. Children love to go to school. We shouldn't say that we have by now we shouldn't be talking about out of 10 million is a lot. So government must do everything humanly possible.
We also have to challenge the governors in the north. Because if you enter a restaurant in the north and you finish your food, before you stand up, those guys are all over you as in a remnant. And I look at it as, is this same country? The way it's not as bad as
that's to tell you that the school feeding program would do a lot of work.
Yes, they are hungry.
Yes, I think
so we have to address poverty.
I agree with you that there should be more concentration on that, particularly in the north. Going by the statistics that we have, out of 13.5 million children globally, Nigeria has
13.2.
13.2. Nigeria has 10.5.
And 66%.
That's 66%. And the majority of those 10%, 10 point something million, precisely over 6 million, are from the north. So they have to do something about it. But like I said, I also recall that there was a time one of the northern governors, made available some freebies for pupils as a way of
as in the last administration, they were even building, they built some Amajiri schools.
Yes, exactly. Good luck, Jonathan's.
As a way of encouraging people. But you saw that a day after the pupils collected those gift items provided by the government to lure them to come to school, the next day they didn't come to school again, and their parents allowed them to sit at home. So you have to go after those parents and say, look, you have to. These are the dangers. These are the inherent dangers. As long as we continue to have this number of out-of-school children in our society, they become the ready-made tools in the hand of terrorists. All these terrorist organizations.
All right, moving on now. The human capacity to forget about hardship is limitless. We got carried away with the lull in activities of Boko Haram insurgents in Nigeria, northeast for some time, that we almost thought they are gone. But on Monday, an attack by the group on MICHIKA, that's in Adamawa State, jolted us into sad reality of their existence. Residents scampered for safety as a result of heavy gunfire in the attack. Before troops of the 115 Task Force Battalion repelled them, it is becoming a long walk to peace in the northeast. Because of the election, they came out during the election, they voted, and some of these states recorded impressive turnouts.
Exactly.
We've gone into that one. We know, you know how they were able to mobilize people and everything. But at the same time, these insurgents, you know, they didn't grab the headlines because we wanted to get results for the presidential and governorship election. But right now, people are still dying.
I think I read somewhere where they said during the election, the Nigerian army as well as the Chadian troops, you know, they were busy making sure that they pushed them out of the Lake Chad Basin, you know, completely, because, you know, raining season is about to come. You know, so they are trying to push them out so that people who want to start farming and fishing will be able to do that. But these guys have not relented. They have infiltrated into all these villages, and they are trying to occupy those villages, trying to make sure that people hear them, that they are still existing.
They even have the sympathy of some of the villages.
No, of course, definitely, they will. Just like you are saying something about out-of-school children, you know. If children are not engaged, if children don't get the proper education, they become easy targets for these insurgents, you know, for them to get. But hopefully and thankfully, the troops, the Nigerian troops, we are able to deal with them. You know, that particular heavy fire that I heard that in fact, it was from all fronts. You know, from the left, from the side, so that they'll be able to deal with them.
I think what they do was to enter from the rear.
Yeah,
you know. Enter the town from the rear.
Yes, you know, so from the back. So, but the Nigerian army, the troops were able to deal with them, making sure that from the rear, from the front, they were able to deal with them. We want to see an end to Boko Haram. Because if you look at the governor of BENUE, the one that will be leaving, he has started reconstruction efforts.
Honestly.
And I've seen some of the schools this man has built.
For the terrorists to go there,
and destroy those, it will be it will be heart-wrenching. Because if somebody has, you know, used all his time, all his efforts, all the resources he has, you know, to rebuild a state that many people don't even want to think of even going again. Because I know there was a particular time Maiduguri used to be the home of peace.
I'm telling you.
You know, so all of a sudden, because of Boko Haram, so many people are running away. But I know there are some people still doing business in Maiduguri anyway.
Yeah, I think Maiduguri is
you know,
relatively
safe. But we want the whole
northeast
northeast to be safe for people. So the federal government should not spare any cost to ensure that peace reigns. And everybody that needs to be dealt with, you know. Another thing I have noticed is that nobody has been prosecuted so far since this war started. Prosecution in the sense that who is funding these Boko Haram terrorists? Because that is another thing. This is another year. We have entered another year. We are spending money. We are dealing with them. Somebody is actually giving them money.
We're talking about that till it assumed a kind of international dimension. That we know that ISIS, you know, before ISIS,
even before ISIS,
right now,
you know, we have not seen any major prosecution to say that, okay, this is the person that is actually funding. You can't tell me that the intelligence gathering of the federal government or the Nigerian army, can penetrate the group. It's not possible.
Why?
I think what we have just seen is just to confirm the fact that you cannot compare terrorism with the conventional war. You know, terrorism is full of surprises. You know, that's why it is also important for our security agents, particularly the army, to always be on the lookout. You know, they can spring surprise at any time. That's why they call it terrorists. You know, they want to instill fear in you. They want to make sure you are not able to do certain things. They want to make sure that you do things according to their own dictates. You know, that is why they continue to spring all these surprises. So I wasn't surprised that it happened. It can still happen again, but what is important is for us to repel it, and don't assume that you have won the war. You know, you don't put a timeline to terrorism when you are fighting terrorism. There are so many countries that had a similar experience in the past. Look at is it Sri Lanka now? It took them about almost, I think, over 50 years.
Yeah, over 50 years.
Over 50 years
exactly.
before it ended. You know, that is the nature of terrorism. You know, and that's how they think, that's how they work. Because it's about this ideology. The more you kill them, as you are killing some are coming.
They're radicalizing
they are radicalizing some. You know, they have a way of doing it. There was a time they were even luring people with loan. You know, they give them loan, you know, that just come and join us. You know, some of them did not even know the nature of what they were coming to join. But by the time they got there, it becomes difficult for them to come out. So they have been radicalized. So they cannot come out. Their aim will not be to go about and be destroying things, destroying people, and causing all manners of havoc in every part of the country. You know, that is why we have to make sure that you don't claim victory over terrorism. You know, you don't have to say you have decimated there. How can you say you have decimated people, and occasionally they still spring surprises and they kill a lot of people? You know, people will now ask you, the impression you gave us is that you have decimated them. How come they are still able to carry out this level of attack? You know, attack that will kill a lot of people. Only God knows the number of people that they killed there, even though kudos to our troops that they were able to repel them, you know, on time. But that is not to say they will still go and regroup. They will come back, you know, they will be planning more vicious attack. So what is now left for the Nigerian troops is for them to also plan ahead. You know, plan ahead. How are you going to? It's not something. They don't need to be in a haste to win this war. Just make sure that you have your plans right. Thank God they are now sharing intelligence, unlike in the past, whereby you know, army are working
on their own.
You know, they are working at cross purposes. We're now in a situation whereby, because that is the major thing that the world has learned from the US after the 9/11 attack. You know, the CIA, before then, the CIA and all other security agents, they were doing their things separately. FBI, but when they saw the magnitude of that they now decided to be doing to be collaborating.
Asuko, do we need help from the Western powers to actually deal with this, because it's taking a very worrisome dimension?
No, I think we already have the help from America and Britain, because I know they are training some of our soldiers.
Are they giving us equipment?
We ordered for 12 to Kano.
Super to Kano. That was called 2021.
That is the nature of that is how it is.
No, that is it.
It's not
it's not something that you can go to the shelf and buy.
You have to build some according to specification.
Exactly.
You look at your region. What works in US may not necessarily work here.
You know, so I know they are giving technical support. They are giving human support as well. You know, especially technical support, because I know from time to time, both across. When I mean across, I mean the Nigerian Navy is getting support from the US and the UK. The Army the same. The Air Force the same. So it's across board, and they've been getting this, you know, support from the international community. It might not be financial gains. It might not be human, as in them putting their foot on the ground, going there and fighting with Boko Haram. But the intelligence they are getting, I know those who have been going to this, you know, to these trainings, which has been supported by the US and the UK, they've been gaining a lot. And I think that is why we've been having these successes so far.
All right. I want to thank you, Wahid Bakari. Thank you for your contribution on today's program. And Asuko James, thank you for contributing to this program. Adekunle Yusuf was in the studio. I just cited Adekunle somewhere in the studio. Thank you for coming. I know Lagos traffic could be unpredictable. And that's our offering today on Journalist Hangout. Join us tomorrow for another exciting episode of the program. You can also watch Journalist Hangout on our other platforms showing on the screen. We're also on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangouts at tvcnews.tv. I'm Ayodele Uzuwa. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless Nigeria.